If I go to a hotel, I need money. Where is the money? I don't have any money. What do I have? $300? My monthly salary? How do I get diapers and milk for my daughter? And I can't stay at a hotel because they have become targets, and it's scary.
Let's speak now about the scope of this war, the impact, of course, on civilians as well. We can speak to the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Alain Berset. The Council of Europe is an international organization promoting human rights and the rule of law. Thank you so much for joining us on our program today. I first want to ask you about this war escalating. Strikes are continuing across the region. What do you think we are witnessing? Is this war spreading as you see it in this moment?
I think what we are seeing right now, and thank you for having me, first of all. What we are seeing right now is not only that the war is spreading, it is really a kind of, I would say, more additional signal about the rupture that we are witnessing in the world order. And as we see, and I just mentioned before, I mean, civilians are paying a very high price for this. And for the Council of Europe that I represent, and we are really concerned because we received also, some of our countries, member states, have been targeted. I mean, Azerbaijan, Cyprus, and others. And we have a direct immediate border with Iran, with the Council of Europe. I mean, we are strongly concerned about what it means for the stability of the world in general, also in Europe, in the whole Middle East and region, and also about all the consequences and negative consequences for human rights and for the civilian populations. They always pay the high price in these kind of situations.
Beyond that concern, what can your organization, what can European countries do to address this instability?
Well, directly in Iran, nothing. I mean, it's not the point. The point is for us, what do we want to achieve and what do we want to see developed as stability in the world. And I think we need, and it is what we are discussing right now at the European continent, we need to think in a comprehensive way on security architecture. We need to think about what we call democratic security. That means to have clearly the security issues addressed, I mean, at the military level, but also at the institutional level. We need also strong institutions able to control, I mean, strong armies, to have stability. Otherwise, it is a fake security also for the long term. We need to have stability again. It's the only way, I think, to develop prosperity and positive perspective and development for our populations. And we see right now the need, I mean, the war we are witnessing since now many years, and it is accelerating quite brutally. We really need now to rethink about this security architecture in general, and also to be able to address all those issues, if possible in dialogue, trying also respecting international law to find ways together to have this stability. But clearly it's not the war we are witnessing right now.
As your organization, of course, works in human rights, the rule of law, democracy, what about the messages that we've heard now coming from Iran? We understand that the new supreme leader is a hardliner like his father. This is a regime that has brutally suppressed its people. Thousands of protesters there were killed, as we know, in January. What do you think of the new leader and what might come for Iran and Iranians in particular?
It's difficult for me to make a personalized assessment, but what we see, I mean, human rights in Iran are the same as human rights in all countries. These are universal or they are meaningless. And we need to see in this situation that we need to, be clear on this and to see that, government, addressing some threats or destroying their own population, it's not possible to accept something like this. And we must be very clear on this. At the same time, it is not only about the short term, it is about also the long term and the kind of stability we can have and envisage for the whole region. I mean, we need for this a strong multilateralism. At the same time, we are not naive. I mean, what's happening right now is not possible just to solve now in the short term while speaking together, but we need to have the escalation, first of all, to address what it means for Iran to have the situation right now and to try to bring an added value for the stability and good protection for human rights in the future. But for this, I think we need to have a kind of coherence between the very short term, what's happening now in 1 hour, in 6 hours, tomorrow, I mean, with the ongoing war, and at the same time to think at which kind of developments do we are we able to envisage for the longer term? That's the only way, I think, to envisage and to also maybe to reach some stability. And it is not only for the people in the region, it's not only for the population in Iran. They deserve this stability, they deserve good conditions for living and for having projects and for developing the country. It is not given at the moment, clearly not, and we need to think in the longer term to have to make this possible.
We have to leave the conversation there. Thank you so much for your time. Israeli warplanes have continued to launch raids across Lebanon, where close to 700,000 people are displaced. That's as Hezbollah fires rockets across the border into Israel in an apparently coordinated attack with its Iranian allies. Lebanon's health ministry said at least 8 people were killed in an attack on Thursday at a seafront area of the capital, Beirut. At least 31 other people were hurt. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he warned the Lebanese government that Israel will act to disarm Hezbollah, quote, on the ground if Lebanese authorities fail to do so. Our correspondent Rhea Davis spent time with civil defense units in the town of Nabatia, which has come under constant Israeli attack and which is now part of a new evacuation zone.
Well, this is, or at least was, a 4-story residential building in the town of Nabatia in southern Lebanon. It was hit at 9 o'clock this morning. Luckily, there was nobody in at the time, so there have been no injuries. But there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of Israeli airstrikes in this area over recent days. But such is the intensity of the Israeli bombing that many families here have decided to leave. This place is like a ghost town. And there are dozens of strikes like this throughout the day, really stretching these guys from the Civil Defence Service to the limits. Well, we were just about to leave at the end of the day, and the 2 more massive explosions. One airstrike hit the village here, that's on the edge of Nabatia, and we are right next to the hospital. Another one in that direction over to my south. Now, there were some general evacuation warnings issued by the IDF before these airstrikes, but nothing too specific. We are, of course, in an area north of the southern evacuation zone imposed by Israel. But such is the intensity and the power of these Israeli airstrikes that many of these areas now are depopulated because the risk of staying here is just too great. We've now come down from the hospital to the scene of one of those strikes, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a residential building that's been destroyed on the front of it by an Israeli airstrike. Apparently there was nobody in this building at the time, but remember, there have been 4 airstrikes around this town in the last 20 minutes. At least 3 people have been injured in one of the other strikes. It's chaos. The sense you get here is that the emergency services are completely overwhelmed. They're literally going from one strike to another. It's not clear what Israel's objectives are here right now. This town, Nabatia, is north of that southern exclusion zone from where Israel wants to eradicate all armed Hezbollah fighters. There are clearly pockets of support for Hezbollah here, but many, many other civilians here have left the area now because of the intense Israeli bombing. How long this will last, we just don't know.
We're at Davis reporting there. We want to bring you some news from the U.S. now and an update on a shooting at Old Dominion University in Virginia Thursday morning, where 1 person was killed and 2 others were wounded. The FBI now says the incident is being investigated as a terror-related attack. And in a separate incident, police in Michigan say a man...
Well, during his speech, the Supreme Leader also mentioned the Gulf states that have been at the forefront of those missile and drone attacks from Iran. He said that Iran is only targeting US bases in those nations. So what do those nations make of what was said by the new Supreme Leader? Let's speak now to Barbara Plett-Usher, who's our correspondent here in Doha. Barbara, you listened to what the new Supreme Leader had to say. He talked, didn't he, about the Gulf states and about the fact that Iran is targeting US bases only. But that's not true. How would that have gone down here?
Well, they would have listened very closely. He did seem to indicate that he didn't want to alienate the neighboring countries any more than they have been alienated, which is quite a lot. He said this targeting of U.S. bases was being done without carrying out any aggression towards the regional countries. We remain committed to the necessity of friendship and so on, but we will continue targeting the U.S. bases. And then he also seemed to issue a warning. He said, as if they should reconsider their military cooperation with the U.S. He says, I recommend they shut down those bases because clearly it's not working. This deal for the Americans to give peace and security has just been a lie. So kind of mixed messaging there, but I think the fact that he says they're going to continue those attacks means that the attacks will continue. And as you said, they haven't just been hitting the bases. They've been hitting civilian infrastructure and oil infrastructure and energy infrastructure. And so I think the Gulf countries watching will think this is more of the same. Also, the tone of the message seemed to indicate that there was going to be no appeasement, no compromise. And that is something that they will also have been listening to closely.
How far do you think Gulf nations can be pushed before they take a step towards the direction of retaliation?
I think retaliation is a very big thing, because if you start fighting Iran, the attacks the other way will increase. I think that would be the view. Whether they can